This is Transmutation Podcast. Our focus is to bring you inspirational speakers from all walks of life that have transmuted challenges into success. We all have obstacles to overcome, and our guests will give you insights that will provide the inner wisdom for your own transformation. Every one of us is capable of achieving greatness, but rarely unleash the passion necessary to propel us to the next level. Transmutation Podcast will take away the barriers to unlimited potential that exists within all of us. I'm Michael Jaco with Moe Bedard, your host for Transmutation Podcast. Our guest today is Mike McCann, who grew up near Woodstock, New York. He is a former Navy SEAL, Naval Intel officer, corporate security professional, and currently living the rock and roll dream as the producer, songwriter, lead guitarist, and vocalist for the band Raven Tree. Mike currently resides in Baltimore, Maryland with his wife and daughters.
Okay, good.
What's up, Michael? So we got Michael and Michael again, huh?
Yeah. We'll go with Michael for me and Mike for Mike McCann. So
sounds good. That'll make it easy.
Let's see if I can get a little bit more.
Nice to meet you, Mike. Yeah,
same here. Thanks for having me on. So this is the first time in like 27 years that I've seen Big Mike Jaco, man.
Has it been that long? Wow.
I think I saw you once at in Virginia Beach during a reunion. That was probably 94, 95. I think you had just gone back over to Dam Neck around that time frame, somewhere around the mid-90s, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But that was the last time I saw you. We were drinking. Well, I was drinking. I don't remember if you were, but I certainly was.
Yeah, I usually drink at those occasions. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So after the team, so I was in the teams until 2000. And then I got commissioned. So then I finished out the rest of my career doing, I wound up doing it all. So that was my Navy stuff. And then after I retired, like a lot of guys, I wound up as a director of security for a bank, a $15 billion bank in DC, making six figures and, that whole lifestyle. And then I just said, F it, man, this is not what I should be doing. And grew my hair out. And here's what I do.
That's amazing. Yeah, very good story.
Yeah, what I would love to hear, Mike, basically is what you just said now in 2 minutes. Stretch that out over the next 60 minutes and let's make a go of it. And remember, this is about you and your story. And what I like to hear, and I know Michael's kind of the same, is kind of from the beginning, from, even a childhood, your earliest things of what happened with you and how you transformed in your path to where it took you to your path now. You agree, Michael?
Oh, totally. Yeah. That's human interest story. I mean, everyone's going to love this story.
Exactly.
It's an amazing story you have, Mike. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your past growing up and, how you got to where you're at now? Just, briefly in your past.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in upstate New York, primarily. Richmond, born in Richmond, Virginia. And, I still consider myself a Virginian, as does, my mother. But I grew up primarily in upstate New York, right outside of Woodstock. And, the community and the environment at the time, late 70s and early 80s, was really kind of unique in that it was very creative. A lot of musicians, a lot of artists. I think the most unique thing about growing up, though, was that I grew up in this small town where all of us had to do everything. Kind of like in the teams, right? Where you only have a few guys, so you have to cover a lot of bases. And so you could be the captain of the wrestling team like I was and date a cheerleader, also be in a rock band, also be the class artist, also do all of these things. And so, in a small town like that, we had 35 people in my high school class. I think we had 500 people kindergarten through 12th grade. But what it does is when you grow up like that, you never think of a limitation. You never see what most people grow up with of the idea that I can only be just this. The concept of saying, well, one of those John Hughes Reach du Passage movies where like The Breakfast Club where everybody's in their little box. I didn't have that growing up. There was no box. It was just, we did what we did. It wasn't until I left the mountains and came down into the world. It was like, Why does everybody impose these limitations on themselves? It was really bizarre. So that was my upbringing growing up. And so I went to college and joined a fraternity and did all that stuff. And like a lot of young men, it was a little directionless, right? And so my last year of school, I joined the Naval Reserve. And in boot camp, this guy walks in with a little video cassette and says, anybody interested in being a diver, EOD, or a SEAL, watch this and then let me know. And I thought, well, okay, whatever. It seems kind of neat. Maybe that EOD thing looks kind of cool and I don't have to deal with all this other stuff that the SEALs do, but I still get to jump and blow stuff up. So I walked in and took the test, and later on I found out, well, you can't be a reservist and do this. And I sat there and I said, well, why not? Okay, so I signed my name on the dotted line, and the next thing I know, I'm shipped over for a full 4 years and with no guarantee of anything other than I might go to Buds. Went to Buds and, met you and a number of other really fine individuals.
Now, when you're at Buds, did you think of me as a fine individual, or were you like, oh my God? I mean, how did that work? I know a lot of guys are like, come up to me later and go, what? Oh my God,
No, see, so for you, Mike, it was different. Every instructor was always different. They had their own thing. Like, I can't remember the big guy that was the first phase lieutenant. Warrant officer. He was Mike Egan. I remember him. He had his thing. You had your thing. Landry had his thing. Okay. And Landry was definitely a kook with a capital K. But, and it's interesting. I've talked with Dan Franks about this as well. And Dan and I kind of agree that you have always had this like Zen mystic thing going on. Even in PT, when you're hammering the hell out of us, it never felt punitive. It always felt as if you were trying to get us to understand that limitations are all up here. And therefore, as we would go through things like 1,000 sit-up workout or, some other, crazy thing that you're thinking, how much longer can we go? And you're up there on the podium with a big grin, and it's just like, we can go as long as we decide we're going to go. And at the time, and in the beginning, you're just like, this is crazy. About halfway through Buds, you start to realize nothing's crazy except a limitation that you place on yourself. So you've always had that spot in my memory as the guy that, even if you weren't a fully realized intuition warrior that you are now, you were definitely on that path as that mentor leader, even though you might take us to the surf zone because that's a part of the program. There was nothing that was designed to be punitive. It was always about building us up. It was always about showing us another lesson. And those lessons were always about breaking down those limitations, those self-imposed obstacles that we had in our own minds. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastically well put. So I always had that thing, even as a little kid, that there was something more to all of us, kind of like what you were saying, as, I had no limitations. I knew that if I wanted to focus on something and achieve it, I was going to do that if I had the desire and I had the focus. And it's been that way my whole life. Now, what was it? There was like a transmutation type thing that all of us go through as SEALs. What was it for you?
I think, McChrystal said it best in one of his books, where the SEALs have this, I think the quote is, a near telepathic ability to work as a cohesive whole, almost like a single organism. When we, and I've never heard it put any better. I was always disappointed that it was an Army general that had to define it this way, because it was so perfect. For me, that connection, that intuitive connection, if you will, what came about, it was Steel Pier, Tuesday night of Hell Week. And I'll never forget it. I was in the water. I was hyperventilating. I was having an exceptionally difficult time. I could not do it. I just could not inflate whatever it was. And it was the first time, through the two first phases that I had to do. I don't know if you recall, but I made it all the way to Hell Week and then got rolled all the way back to the first day of phase one, the first time. And so when I had finally gotten to Hell Week, it was kind of like, this was the first time I really had hit something that I could not do by myself. Does that make, it's like, well, I've gutted through everything and ultimately you get there on your own. But that's when Christian Garcia swam over to me and inflated my shit for me and bailed my ass out, because otherwise, dude, I would have been done right there. Either they would have pulled me out for a safety issue and it would have been over, or it would have been, I would have just, so that was when I realized nobody gets through this that by themselves. It's a team thing, that we look out for each other and that we have to pull together and that we have to really be cognizant of each other in a way that transcends a lot of what, typical life outside of the teams is like. So that for me was the transformative experience that I still feel to this day.
That's awesome.
Hey,
and Mo, it's kind of interesting because you're getting to ask a question of like, two guys that are like in one of the most, sought after and, the SEAL, Hell Week and stuff like that we're talking about right now. Everybody's fascinated by that. And now we're giving, some insights into that. It's a team effort. You start to learn that. You start to commingle on a deeper level with people, and that helps you get through. You support each other. What kind of questions, as someone that's, kind of like on the outside looking in, that you've always had for, this type of training?
Well, what I noticed, in correlation to what you had said now is that, you mentioned that you had watched other people go through this and talk to people before you got into it, Michael, into the Navy SEALs. And then we have here Mike kind of going through the same process and, seeing someone and someone showed him like a video or some different kind of marketing material or whatever on the SEALs. And he said, hey, I could do it. And then you guys get into this together, and you have, of course, you guys that are leaders who have been through this, right, that are coaching it. And he described you as, somewhat like the Zen master. And then, you guys are going through it as a team cohesive effort where everybody is kind of helping each other out. And I believe it goes to a metaphysical level. There's just something there that is deeper than human nature. So that's what I like to talk about, is like the spiritual side of it. So you had asked him what kind of transmutation he had went through, and he had said, he was, Mike, you were in the water.
I would articulate it this way. It's okay. A complete and utter release. You have to let go of everything at that moment, whatever that moment happens to be in training, when it happens to be for the individual. But you have to let go of, I think, what, the psychologists would call the ego. And I don't mean, the narcissism definition. I'm talking about that psychological sense of ego, and really kind of you have to let that go. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to be able to transcend those boundaries that are holding you in spiritually. You have to really, it's a release that I feel is absolutely metaphysical. It's the same release that anybody will feel. I would assume it's almost as if you stop worrying about taking care of yourself and you just allow things to be what they're going to be. Like when you step off the back ramp of a C-130 at midnight over the Atlantic in February, there's a moment of like, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. For me, that's what I kind of felt going through BUD/S. At a certain point, it's like, it's out of my control. It's going to be what it's going to be. But the ability to undergo or to allow yourself to release,
Yeah, that answers it right there for me, Michael and Mike. That's what I'm looking for is, what happens spiritually and metaphysically. And you explained it really well there. So what I'm gathering, from an outsider is that in order to, transcend, in these teams and to become a SEAL, you've got to release that ego and not be afraid to die. And then I know, of course, you've mentioned, Michael, people do die going through this training, and not to mention the war zones and the things that you guys go through. So, it's hard to understand that on the outside, never going through something like that and go through training that might kill me. And, you literally have to put it all aside and trust your superiors, you guys, and then the training, and it's amazing. You guys go through this, and most of you guys live, of course, and you guys live great lives and go on to different paths, which is pretty cool, which we're going to talk about your path here, Mike, soon. So
yeah, that transformative thing that happens, I got to the point where I could see that happening in people. Eventually, when I started doing the hand-to-hand program, I kind of took that same concept that we were doing in Buds. And some guys that were going through the hand-to-hand program were like, God, this is like Buds. But it was like pushing guys to their limit, and then they had to overcome something. So I started to differentiate and actually see people as they started to make this transition, and like the no ego, like complete release, and like you're talking about, Mike. And it wasn't, a lot of people think that it's us against the instructors, but the instructors are part of the process, obviously, but they're also helping you, guiding you. So I would I'd push, you're thinking, oh my God, this guy's like, insane, he's like making us do all this stuff. But it was helping you find that thing within yourself and start to release and like you're talking about. I mean, I'm that way with everything in life. That's really well put. I don't, think negative thoughts. I don't focus on something that's I think might happen, because I used to see all the guys that did that, just popped out. But the guys who still had the focus and had the release, and then had the the team mentality to accept others, and that's a hard process too, because we're all very individualistic, and we don't like to have other people help us. But you learn how to do that in the teams, and it's I think it's kind of like a humanity thing on a deeper, higher level, and that's why I love these types of conversations, this transmutation, intuition, and stuff like that. So here you've gone through Hell Week. Is kind of like the thing that differentiates all of SEALs. The thing that combines all of us, and it happens through every Special Forces training. They push the individual somehow to go beyond the norms, the normal. We always say we went 10 times beyond the physical capabilities of the human body, and I strongly believe that. And the only way we did that is because we went into these states of consciousness. So, taking that state of consciousness that you learned, that you just talked about, how did you start to apply that further on in the teams and then after the teams?
I was just having this conversation with another old teammate not long ago. So we were up in Alaska. It was on my second platoon, and we were up there doing a workup. And I just, I'd skied a little bit when I was a kid, but this was a completely new thing. And I wound up at the bottom of a mountain one day in a complete heap in a snowdrift. And by one day, I mean, it's like 6 a.m. And this one guy named Jeff, who I'm sure you know who he would be. He looks like a Ken doll. This guy's a perfect specimen. He comes skiing down the slope with the hockey stop and everything. And he just stands there like all the eagle flying, the sun's coming up. And it's like all of that is there for Jeff, right? And I'm laying there like a big sack of poo. And Jeff he stands there and goes, Mongo, just take a look around, breathe, take a deep breath, and realize it's a beautiful day. And off he goes. And at first I was just like, I wanted to throttle the guy, right? That is not what but then it's just like, he's right. You just, again, release, get up and engage in your life and engage in the moment, because sitting there and just, there's no one there to help you, other than that little bit of help, which is, no one can ski for you. You're going to have to do this. And so I think that those moments, and it's not just that in the teams, it's even now I struggle. I'm always constantly struggling with that. Take that deep breath, allow the release, and then just realize that some things don't need to be controlled. Some things just need to be experienced. And so with that in mind, the teams were like that. I like to think I took that with me when I went to OCS, in that halfway through my career, I went to OCS, and I was the class leader throughout OCS for my OCS class. And there were a lot of those things that the insight from having gone through BUDS, it was a very similar type of mentality from the drill instructors there. And so sometimes you could see, it's not necessarily a weeding out. It's more of a training process. So you're not there to allow people to fail. If you can educate them and help them become a great naval officer, that's the point. So I would sit there with some of these guys because, like you said, you could start to see these kids that are just losing their confidence. I was 35 years old. These are 22-year-old guys, and gals. So sometimes you take them aside and you explain to them the process. You kind of show them the insight that you've gotten from the 10 years and the buds that you'd already been there. And I was able to kind of like say, hey, you know what, here's the process. And then you start to see it like, oh, the light comes on. And suddenly they would start to excel, or at least get better at what they were doing.
So that's interesting. So you made the transition as a enlisted guy into the officer community. How was that once you did that?
It was different because that was when I left the teams properly, the proper teams, meaning I wound up working in other areas of special operations throughout my career and in special projects types of stuff. But so I was never really employed or integrated into a community or an environment like the teams. And that was very difficult because if you want to talk about how lonely that can feel, we could spend 2 weeks and a lot of beers talking, probably commiserating on that. But I think that I also feel like maybe that was the universe saying, it's time for you to go out and experience it and to do other things with what you've learned. Maybe it's like the time in the teams has been accomplished, or the task or the goal, whatever it had been accomplished, and it was time to go in this direction. But it doesn't mean that it was easy. It was actually much more difficult,
Yeah, I realized that too once I started to fly the desk, and I was able to play a long time. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be enlisted, so I would get to play longer. And,
right.
Throughout my career, they were always trying to tell me, hey, you should be an officer, all the way up to the end, like 24 years. Like 24-year mark is like, hey, make the transition officer. I was like, no thanks, because I still get to play, But
right.
the reason why I got out is they wouldn't let me play anymore. So like, okay, I got to go play somewhere else. So that's when I joined the CIA. But that's pretty amazing that you've been making these transitions. Now, eventually you go through, top secret type stuff, of course, SEAL teams, a lot of top secret stuff. And then now you're doing top secret stuff. I kind of skirt along the realm of that. I was involved in, getting bin Laden and stuff like that. Obviously can't talk about, the deeper aspects of that. But some things that, I did kind of help, as far as like being that individual, but with all that background, it really helped me do some amazing things. Did you have some experiences like that before you got out of the Navy as an officer?
Yeah. So what was interesting, and this is where, when I take a macro view of my naval career, what I realize is that my whole life has been focused on being an entry-level guy, meaning I was entry-level in the Navy, entry-level in the teams. I made E6. And right when you start hitting that journeyman point, that professional point, now I hop over into another lane and become the bottom of the food chain as an officer, right? And as an unrestricted line officer, and then a restricted line officer as an intel guy, it was they value your background experience, but you're still an ensign. You're still that fresh out of OCS guy. So I think that it was, I can't remember who said this to me. It was very early on at Team 2. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And that is an adage that I have kept in the back of my head throughout, is that at that entry level, it's always about, okay, yeah, I've got all this experience, but sometimes it's just about shutting up and listening, because there's going to be something here that I don't know, because I haven't done it before, whatever it may have been. So there was a lot of that. And I wound up doing a lot of program development stuff, meaning especially because between 2001 and the time I retired in 2012, we were constantly trying to find a new way to prosecute the adversary. And so there were always these new programs, these new ideas that people wanted to try. And I think, from a HR perspective, the Navy viewed me as a throwaway. I'm a guy that was prior enlisted in a special capacity that now that I'm over here, they don't have to necessarily allow me to progress professionally as they would the young folks that are coming up and going through the pipeline by the numbers. So it was like, well, we need somebody down here to put this together. So after my first fleet tour, 2.5 years, I was sent to Fort Bragg as a one of one, standing up a new position within SOCOM, within USASOC. And it was a liaison type of position, but I wound up in the middle of the mountains in Afghanistan running and gunning with some SF guys. And, you know, a mutual friend of ours, which I can't say over here, but, you know, it's still, you still wind up doing what you're best at. But it was still an initial kind of one of those, go build this for us. We don't know what we know. We don't know what we need. We don't know what we want. We don't know what it's supposed to look like, but we know we need something. So go do it. And after that, I tried to save my first marriage. I had a break in service. I was in the reserves, and I was hired by a company called AMTI, who you may be familiar with from back in the day. And I was hired I was working for Tim Erskine. And there was a task at Naval Intelligence that they wanted a capability. There was an office that was standing up. There was one rogue frog officer who was leading that at ONI, and I was tasked as his support to help put that together. And again, it was one of these things where it was a team effort that I was responsible on leading the contractor support to developing, and it's now its own separate command. At the time, it was like 10 or 15 people. And again, it was one of these things where we have these ideas, not sure what it's going to look like, but just go do it. And that's very similar to, you know, the experience we've had in the teams, where it's like, you can plan for everything, but the moment you get off that bird at 3 a.m. and hit that ground, you don't know what it's really going to be like. And it was kind of the same process. And then after that, I held a position at OpNav that was responsible for tactical special programs that were related to that, what I had just been doing for the last 6 years. And again, it was establishing a new position. But what was really interesting is that even when I went over to DIA for my Twilight tour, again, I was put into another position where we need this capability. We needed somebody who can go out and do these things, interfacing with the service level, at the service level. And so go figure that out. And when I got to the bank, you're the first ever position at this bank. We don't know what we need, but we know we need something. And I'm telling you, Mike, every part of my professional career, that was it. That was it for the time I got commissioned until the time I joined, became a rock guy.
That's fascinating. So eventually you got to the point where you got tired of the corporate side and then made another transition. So you're making these transitions throughout life. I mean, you're living a lot of different dreams that a lot of people would like to live, and you've done them like multiple. It's like the one SEAL that's like, former SEAL that's like an astronaut and he's a doctor, and I mean, you're doing all that stuff too. It's like you said, you just had no limitations. You just kept, what's next? What's next? Well,
and that's what we learned going through BUD/S is that anything you want to do, you can do. I mean, when you come out of Hell Week, at that moment, whether you finish BUD/S or not, and I would assume that even the guys that didn't finish but did complete Hell Week, they had the same mentality of, I'm capable of doing anything I want to do. I just have to, well, what is it that I want? And I think that's where, in all of our lives, we struggle, right? With the baggage that we develop in adolescence that, some people never shed it. And if you can start to see that woods for the trees of what you really want in here, then that mindset that we've developed for ourselves can then be engaged, and you can go as far as you want with your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and what I found interesting with your story, Mike, is that you did have doubts. You talked about being in the water and having a little trouble during BUD/S training, and then also that doubt here and there whether you can get through it. And you said sometimes you do struggle even now with that voice sometimes. And, from an outsider looking in, it's comforting to know that some of you guys that become SEALs, you have that voice, and it's not just kind of like, sometimes I'll see, Michael, or Jaco, or these guys talk about their experiences, and it almost seems like they were born to be a SEAL, almost not robotic, but almost like it's just ingrained in their head, and that's all they see, and with you, it wasn't like that. It was a little bit different, and you kind of fell into it and decided, hey, I'll try that. And you did it, but you had a little doubt here and there, and you went back in training once, you had mentioned. So it's cool to hear that honesty, and then also the frailty of the matter, and that you're human, just like a lot of us that don't become SEALs, but you did do it, so it's cool to know that. So it's great to hear that story.
Well, I think, for myself, and I can't speak for every frog, like you said, I just had lunch. My wife and I just had lunch with an old teammate. Mike, Scrappy, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So Scrappy and I were in training. We graduated together, and he is one of those guys that you're talking about. That guy was born for one thing, and he is amazing at it. And I love the guy. He's one of my closest friends. But I was definitely not that guy. I wound up doing it because for me, I had a lot of issues, man. It was like my life was a cosmic shambles until I joined the Navy. So it helped me, I don't know, focus. There was a construct, there were some left and right limits. And even though it widened my spiritual aperture, it really did help provide me some guidance to just get my life focused, if that makes any sense. And for me, there were a lot of other issues, emotional, that I was probably trying to resolve by just, can I do it? Can I graduate? I need a win in my life. I'm 25 years old. I was one of the older guys in my class. I'm 25 years old going through this program because at that point I had had 0 wins in my life, and I needed something. I needed to be able to feel like I've accomplished something,
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment, to do that, and then to go on to be an officer, and tell about the transition, of course, to your path now. It's one that I find very interesting, and I'm sure Michael as well. You don't really see that often with people that become Navy SEALs and then go on to a career such as you're doing now, on a path.
So it's interesting. I don't know how much of if it's a transition or a revelation. Throughout my entire time in the teams and in the Navy in general, was music. Even in college, music kept popping up in my life. As a freshman, I would do these open mic nights, but then I'd pack away the guitars and they'd be in the closet for a few years. And then I might drag them out. I'd find myself jamming with some other folks. In the Navy, after my first deployment, I had about 5 or 6 months where I wasn't doing much. And a friend of mine, you might know him, Mike, his name is Mish. He went by okay, so Mish and I had an acoustic duo, and we gigged around Virginia Beach for about 3 straight months, 2-3 nights a week, where we were just doing acoustic stuff in the age of the unplugged era. And again, it's one of these things where, and Mish, Mike, it's that mindset of like, well, we decided we're going to do this. And the next thing you know, we're doing more than a lot of people do who struggle for years. Like, how come I can't even get a gig? And it's like, well, I don't know, but we're doing 3 a week, and we're doing all this other stuff. And then that went away, and we both deployed and did other things. And I came back, and again, there was this other thing I did where I recorded a record playing guitar with another band, and that lasted for a few months, and then I transitioned somewhere else, and then that went away. So every few years, the music thing seemed to be popping up. And like Joe Walsh once said, when you get to a certain age in your life, you look back and you realize your life has unfolded according to plan. But when you're in the middle of it, it's total chaos. It's like, what am I going to do next? And what's my plan? I don't have a plan, or I want to have a plan, but every time I try, it falls apart and whatever. And so when I look back at my life, I see this thing where music was always the thing I was probably supposed to be doing. But I had all these other issues that had to be resolved first before I could actually start doing this in the robust, committed fashion that I'm doing it now.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I remember when I was a kid, you might think it's kind of weird, but I used to have super long blonde hair, and couldn't see it now, I'm sure, but it was curly at the ends, and I kind of fancy myself becoming, a rock and roller, and that kind of underlining thing was always there. That obviously happened to you. I mean, you were doing it in high school. You grew up in Woodstock. I mean, you have this energy there, so it's kind of like an underlining thing that I've talked about too. When I was a very little kid, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and then eventually, kind of went the back burner, and then eventually came out when I, got of age that I could do that. So is that kind of something that was happening with you? It's kind of like on the back burner. It's like, okay,
Yep.
let's run with this. Let's do this.
Yeah, it finally got to that point. It's interesting. One of my oldest and closest, he's my brother. He's this, he's young. He's this, total South Jersey Jap kind of guy. Self-described him. That's his description. Scott and I were roommates and best friends and fraternity brothers, and we still are. And I'll never forget, right around that time, I was about 40, 41. I was going through a divorce and all of these things, and, this chaos of my life. But I was talking to him about that recognition that I was starting to kind of recognize that there's more to life than what I had been living up to then, that I needed to be, call it a midlife crisis or whatever. And Scott, I'll never forget, we were talking about this, and he said, he brought in the Kabbalah. And he brought that up as not as a ghost story type of Illuminati type of thing, but more of the self-awareness spiritual aspect of what the Kabbalah teaches. And he said, the reason why in the Jewish faith it takes it, you really can't study the Kabbalah until you reach the age of 40 is because it takes until the age of 40 for you to get it. Because when you hit 40, you start to get it now. You start to it takes that long. That's kind of like the general age where people make that break. They either commit fully to their issues, meaning they stay married to those issues for the rest of their lives, or again, it's that process of releasing and saying, you know what, I can't be this. I can't keep doing this over. I've got to release this and move forward with this. And apparently, I've never studied the Kabbalah, but my friend Scott has. And that was this process that he described to me as part of his study and his religion, was that's a part of that life process at a certain age, generally around 40, we start to kind of get it. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know a lot of people that have gone into groups and stuff. There's drugs, there's, obviously sex, and go down some dark roads. I even have a lot of people that have told me about, demonic type stuff. Some high profile rock and rollers that I actually know have told me that they were invited, like, Transylvania type castles, and they were told, okay, give up your soul and you're going to be able to, be a rock and roll star.
Right.
Have you experienced any stuff like that, or?
Well, so part of my spiritual journey was around the mid 90s. I hit a bookstore and I had all those, but I still have them because I think they're fascinating. I investigated the Wicca stuff, and I've got a copy of the Necronomicon on my shelf too. I've got books by Montague Summers, which are the bibliographies on those are pretty fascinating too. So it hasn't been something that I look at. I've read the Gnostic Gospels. Elaine Peigel's work is really phenomenal. And so there is an aspect of this where I've investigated it, from a spiritual context of what does that mean to me? What has that done? And I think it really kind of came about to reinforce some of these things we're already talking about, right? Listening to that inner spirit, whether you call it the secret or whether you call it, manifesting your destiny or whatever. Not to sound like Dr. Phil, but it's the common thread behind all of this is this, right? It's following and listening to this and that release and that process, and it's ongoing. Some people are born at one with the universe. I'm not that, right? And so it's been a process. But yeah, when you talk about that I don't necessarily think it was a function of the rock and roll, because it started for me in investigation and spiritual journey, if you will, while I was still in the teens. But I know my wife had also gone, my second wife now, had also experienced something similar around the same time frame in her life, and had also kind of followed the same educational paths. And there is something to be said for, there is more to this existence than this, like Yoda said, this coarse stuff. I'm aware of it, and yet I also know that there's some things I just don't have the time to educate myself fully into engaging with it. So I know that if you half-ass it, you'll wind up with a lot of problems, like you're talking about, people who have stuff floating around their house and following them around for the rest of their lives because they got stupid. And you know what? If I don't have time to really put to it, then I'm not going to do it, because that seems to me not the way to go.
So what I'm getting you're saying, Mike, is that you've been aware of it, you've read about it, you've had several books on it where you've gained knowledge, you understand it, but you've never personally practiced it as far as maybe magic or the occult practices go. And like you had said, it is a full-time practice if you want to do it and if you mess around with it. And I think we see a lot of that now with people doing heinous acts, and they say they're taken over by demons and different things like that. And, and back to what Michael was saying in regards to, selling your soul and different things like that. I used to be involved in punk rock, and I was in a band. I managed bands. I was involved in a record label, stuff like that. I seen people that were on the fringe, and that's what I think you have, of course, in rock and roll, there's going to be people that are on the fringe, and on the occult that do dabble in that type of stuff.
Absolutely.
But they're really the minority as opposed to the majority. The majority, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, are people just like you and I that they like to explore their creative side, and it happens to be rock and roll and music and a different type of dress than normal people. So
I think there's some authenticity to certain people. For example, I think, and I'm only speaking based upon popular, how do I put it? Popular articles and books and things that have been published. But you have people perhaps like, and I'm going to guess, perhaps Jimmy Page may have been a practitioner of one thing or another. I don't know. But I do know that when I look at someone like that, and let's say somebody like Ozzy, I look at somebody who is, if anything, would be a true practitioner. And then somebody who's just, it's more of a gimmick, or more of a, an affectation or a presentation, if you will. And I do know that, for example, I was watching a documentary about gangsters one time, about the mafia, and one of the, I think it was Sammy the Bull Gravano, had said, after The Godfather came out, you had a lot of younger wise guys that were no longer acting like true mafiosi. They were acting like what they saw in the movies. It became this thing of life imitating art. And I think that's what you get nowadays, is when I see these, bands that have all of the crap going on, and I'm like, they don't know what they're really, it's more of it's an image, it's a gimmick. They're just reflecting something that they think should be rock and roll, and they're just putting it on. And it's just kind of like, if you really want to do it, do it. Otherwise, I just don't take you seriously. You're going to sing about things. It's like, even Motley Crue, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah,
it was gimmick, and they did it for one album and they moved on. So I think when it comes to that stuff, it's
yeah, that's really well put. So, you see artists that are obviously you're like, are they really dark, or are they, like you're saying, it's a gimmick? So, and some of them are obviously dark and some of them are obviously light, but your music is spectacular. I just want to give you kudos for that. I always love rock and roll, and your stuff is like crushing it. How did you come up with the name Raven Tree?
So I live in Baltimore, and when I was really looking at trying to present the band, I wanted it to be more about, not about me. I wanted it to be about, I don't know, to reflect my feelings, my emotional state and how I write music. And I'm fully aware that a lot of my music could be considered dark in terms of its thematics. But in Baltimore, I wanted to tie it, I wanted to put down my own creative roots as I have my my home roots, right? And so I looked at what could I tie my band to in Baltimore that would have a history, that would really tie it to the roots of Baltimore. And it's not the football team, I'm not a fan of football in general, but I probably just lost half my fan base.
But you would, if they invited you to play at a football game in front of 50,000 people. Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, a gig's a gig, brother. But I really kind of tied it to the concept of Edgar Allan Poe, because he was the original goth and roller. We're not goth, but when you read his poetry and you looked at the way he lived his life, he was definitely on the ratty edge of just about everything. And I felt like, the concept of the Raven and the imagery and the emotions that it evokes, I felt like very, very comfortable with that. It just felt good to me. And from there,
really good. I like the Raven personally because I think it's a messenger. I've read all of Edgar Allan Poe's work. And so I was kind of I was wondering, because you're from Baltimore and that's where he was from. I was like, I wonder if there's a connection there. So that's cool. I read Carlos Castaneda's, all of his books. The first one I read, I was in Imperial Beach, maybe during the time frame where I was training you, but I was sitting on my balcony or deck by my hot tub, looking out over down towards Mexico. And I was thinking, do I really want to go down this road with this information? And
right.
I heard this raven. I didn't know it was a raven, but I heard this bird going, oh, 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 like that. And I'm like, and so I'm trying to meditate. I'm like, what is that? And I look up and he's looking down at me going, oh, oh. I'm like, what is up with that bird, And then I look down at the book. I'm holding the book, trying to meditate. And is this really where I want to go? And on the cover is a raven. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Thank you. So it flew away then. The ravens are kind of like a messenger,
Yeah, it's more than just a harbinger of death. There's I don't want to call it an esoteric, but there's certainly an instinctual form of knowledge, collective, unconscious. I think that was Jung that we talked about that. I think that the raven has come to symbolize an aspect of our spirituality that goes back, to a prehistory of human emotional consciousness, right? And that may be a stretch, and maybe I'm sounding overblown, but I feel like there's an aspect of that that's beyond just the Poe thing. And that's where it's kind of like, I also wanted a name for the band that would allow us to be musically amorphous, meaning we could do whatever we wanted without it being the flavor of the day band name. For example, Led Zeppelin lives on. You could use that name today for a new band and it would sound okay, whereas Vanilla Fudge just doesn't work past 1976, right? So in the same vein, when I was trying to come up with something, I wanted something that was going to be just open-ended and more about an emotion as opposed to being about a visual experience or image.
So your band members, members come and go. You're basically obviously the head of the band and promoting the band. How are the members of the band? How do they play out with you?
So, I amongst some of the older musicians in Baltimore, I think I come across a little bit like Spinal Tap. I've had, I think 11 drummers since 2014. And my bass player that I have now, Phoenix, and I've been working together now for a couple of years. And the drummer I've had for a few months, we were actually in a cover band back in the day, back in 2005 timeframe. We had a cover band together. And so he and I have both been in the Navy, and towards the end of our careers, we kind of made a split. And then a couple of years ago, we started talking about trying to do something together again once he had retired. So with that in mind, we finally brought him over. I asked him to be a part of this, and he agreed. So that's where the current band is. But, music has changed so dramatically over the last 20, 30 years. It's not just a band. A band isn't just starting from scratch and going all the way to the top. And you don't see that on the national scale either, where you have a lot of national bands or a lot of national level musicians that are in 5 different supergroups. And they're all out there doing different things with their different supergroups all year long. In the same way as an independent band, life happens and you're not making a lot of money, if any. People might like your stuff, but you're not really seeing any financial compensation for really anything we do anymore. So, people come and go based upon not so much that they don't want to be in the band, but they just have other needs that they have to fulfill that they can't do. I can't pay them what they're worth. I can't pay them, $200 a show to go out and do a show when I'm going in the hole already, $200 on each performance just to be able to perform. So it's, that's always been a bit of a challenge to find that journeyman musician with the skills and the talent that's also willing to gut it out to get to that next level.
Excellent. So it's a struggle. I mean, as I'm write books and do a lot of creative stuff myself. It's a struggle these days because there's so much competition, but also there's like this little thing that's going on. I think you kind of mentioned it, where they kind of like suppress you, and they're only going to allow certain people to rise to the top. And have you experienced any of that?
Yes, absolutely. At the local level, man, I'll tell you what. Now, I will say this: when I first started, it was underneath the mentorship of the 98 Rock DJ and impresario Matt Davis. Matt Davis had created since the late 90s an amazing scene of music in Baltimore that was exceptionally inclusive and supportive, and it was really based upon the talent and of the musicians and the music itself. He retired in 2015, the year that we really got going. And since then, it's become much more of an insular, personality-based, type of scene. And you either align with the cult of personality of what it is, or you are shut out. And age discrimination, I've seen it. I've experienced it here in Baltimore. And it's funny because I don't experience it anywhere else, but I experience it here. I've experienced age discrimination. I'm politically agnostic, but at the same time, with the way things have been polarized, if you don't pick a side, then, you're not a part of the program. So I don't align politically with this same, local promoter, and I've been just completely shut out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Mike, because you also had a little of those issues, in the Navy as well, and it's interesting to kind of see that in all aspects of life. It happens out here, and you see that in business. You see that, as you had mentioned, in the Navy a little bit, your SEAL career didn't help you at all, and you were, had issues, when you were going through the as an officer, as a Navy officer, and then you see that now in real life. It just they make us packages, and if you don't fit that marketing package, it doesn't matter your talents or who you are. It's all part of the package, and if you don't, you're just throwaway. And I think you had mentioned that before.
Yeah, let me hit a real interesting point, and I think this is on the larger scale something more important to understand, is that even though I've recognized this as a challenge, the reality of it is that promoter is not responsible for making me successful anyway. Yeah, I am. And relative success in the creative arts has nothing to do with the middleman. It has to do with your connection with your fan, if you want to call them fans or friends, or your audience. And that's the relationship that matters most. And so it doesn't, even though I've experienced these negative things, it's really helped me to refocus on what is important and connecting with with my true audience, with the people that really do enjoy the music and that want to hear it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else, how they may or may not operate. You know what I mean? It's really my responsibility. I can't blame any lack of success on anyone else other than myself, because any failure is my failure to develop my relationship with my audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes total sense. And I mean, if you look at it, it's all on you, and you would have gave up a long time ago if you didn't believe that way, right? So, and then
it's very yep.
Yeah, and then they say, I like that belief that you have a tribe of 1,000. I don't know if you've heard that, Mike. You can get a tribe of 1,000 people and followers. You literally could have a group, a tribe that could sustain you financially, and I think if bands also look at that, because we do that in business and then online. So you don't have to have millions of followers, thousands, tens of thousands. You could just have 1,000, a tribe of 1,000, and maybe you could duplicate that with what you're doing, Mike, and of course get more than that,
Yeah, crowdsourcing and that's one thing I found is that because of the enormity of the artscape now, meaning the number of bands of music out there, that when you attract a fan or an audience now, they are what you used to call a super fan is the standard audience, right? Because people that like you really like you, because there are enough now where they can go find something else that they like. So if they like you, it's because they really do. And they have helped us get bookings at festivals. They've helped us do a lot of different things. If it's crowdsourcing is something that has been discussed, but quite frankly, I'm a management team of one, and on any given day, I'm juggling a workload. I just haven't gotten around to that yet.
Yeah, I think all of us are experiencing that. It's you have to build your own business, and that's truly the key. The number of people that are really dedicated to you can definitely support you and keep you going. There's other things like we're talking about is the amount of hours that you put into something. Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote The Tipping Point and Blink and Outliers, all these different books, and there's a tipping point that we all reach when we do a certain number of hours, and it seems to be like Microsoft, Bill Gates, those guys, the Beatles when they reached a point where like they had 10,000 hours seems to be like some kind of tipping point for success. So they said the Beatles when they first started out, they left England and went over to Eastern Europe where that kind of music was still very new. So they got like almost every night they're playing. So they had all these hours, and eventually they came back and they had all this talent now and all this experience, and they just blew up. Have you experienced some of that as well? When I listen to your albums, I can see the progression and the talent building. So have you experienced a little bit of that as well?
I think it's what I've experienced is interesting, is that when I can't say that we've reached a tipping point in terms of the public consciousness, meaning there are a lot of people that like us and a lot of people where we have an audience in a lot of different countries, but it's very small. 10 people in Australia, 20 people in Brazil, maybe 5 or 10 people in Canada, that sort of thing. And that's the same with the various states in the Union. What I'm finding is that from a different spiritual focus, and it's a little not really answering your question, but I noticed that when I've maxed out my ability to do everything, I've done everything, I've got no other options. I am completely, I'm out of rounds, I'm out of water, I'm out of schlitz, I'm done. That's when shit magically drops out of the sky, dude. And it's like, boom, really? And like last year, we played at the Lincoln Memorial, and we're fortunate enough to have a photographer capture this really amazing photograph of us performing there. That photograph in and of itself was one of those aha things in terms of promotion that really grabbed a lot of people's attention and really helped propel us along. It's these little things that happen here and there that are really not by my design. We're just out there just trying to do it. I think when it comes to the tipping point that you're describing, the 10,000 hours, according to my wife, I've put in about 80,000 hours and she's tired of it. It's like she'd like to have a little more balance with the family and everything. And I agree with her. It's that, have those hours been truly focused and aligned correctly? And I think that's the one thing that you can do 10,000 hours in the wrong direction and you're not going to tip anywhere except off the edge. So I think with what I've done, there have been times when I've gone over here or I've gone over there, and instead of going down a straight line, maybe those 10,000 hours kind of got muddled off to the edges a little bit. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's the challenge for me is not allowing myself to be distracted by the shiny object. And again, what's this telling me? It's kind of like that Harry Potter where he drinks that little liquid luck and he's like, I'm going down to Hagrid's house. I don't know why. I just feel like I have to go down to Hagrid's house. And then all of a sudden everything works out in the end, right? I kind of feel like if I can keep doing this more, then those 10,000 hours are better spent. It's when, you try to take a shortcut or somebody offers you a good deal. Well, if there's one thing that you guys taught us a long time ago, it's shortcuts are just a way to have to do it twice. And, that's one of my struggles, right? But as far as wanting to quit, yeah, there are those times where you're just like, this is just a waste. But it's like, well, what else? This is what I do. This is who I am. It's what I've always been. Now is the time to do it. So this is what I'm doing.
So of all the music you've recorded so far, what do you think epitomizes your talent more than any other song you have right now?
I'm still partial to Redemption, the song Redemption. And I know it's getting a bit of attention now because of the veterans theme that's a part of that. That's inherent in the song. And I just finished an interview with a journalist for True Rock Revival magazine. And he asked me something about my writing and how I come about writing and my process, if you will. And what I said was the thing that I liked about Dylan, and everybody talks about all these things about Dylan. What I found fascinating about Dylan was in the one song, Knocking on Heaven's Door, he spoke an encyclopedic volume of emotion in 4 lines of verse, 4 lines of distinct verse in the whole song. That's it. And it was one of the most powerful songs. So when I write, I try to write in a very simplified fashion that gets right to the meat of it. And as a source operator, they always taught you, what's the motivation, right? And somebody will say, well, it's money. Well, yeah, but why does he want the money? And then you say, well, she wants the money because of this. Well, why is this important? You start drilling down. In the same way, I started to ask myself, if I want to write simplistically and powerfully, I have to be able to really drive down to the deepest part of myself to figure out what is it I'm really trying to say. And when you get to that point and then you capture that, that's a good day. Redemption is one of those songs. 4 lines of distinct verse and a chorus that really kind of spells it out. And before I ever put it out there, I sent it to a few team guys that I know. And they all came back and said, dude, this is exactly how I feel every day. And I said, okay, then I'm there now. This song is ready. And that's the one. It's like, can I do it next time? It's that, it's always a constant journey of reflection, introspection, and execution,
Do songs just come to you as far as lyrics go, or do you have a song as far as the melody goes and then you put lyrics to it, or is it vice versa?
It's, when you're channeling correctly, and by correctly, I mean for me, when I feel like I'm really on that channeling plane, it can come in a variety of different functions. It could be a guitar riff that just flows out, and from there, the dominoes fall. It could be a melody that comes out in my head. It could be something that I'm writing. The lyrics tend to be the last thing I write. The music and the melody come first, and then usually the lyrics happen. Some songs fall right out. Worn to the Bone, which was on our second LP, Devil's Red Mistress. That song was written in about 10 minutes. And it's one of my favorite songs on the album, But at the same time, there are times when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, but lyrically it wasn't as tight as Redemption. And Redemption was one of those songs that, again, it took me a while to really get the lyrics to express what I wanted them to express. But I've had other songs that I have one song that I've written, I haven't recorded it yet. It took me 2.5 years to write. And it took me 2.5 years because I felt like this song was going to be such a powerful statement of something, and I still don't know what it is, but that I was just going to deliberately only allow what comes through correctly to be what it is. Meaning I had a guitar signature, and that was it. I had 3 chords. That's all it was. And for almost 2 years, that's it.
Obviously, they were very important to you, though, to hold 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
but I also knew that if I just crafted the song, it was never going to be what it was supposed to be. So I waited until, Yahweh, Allah, the Great Spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, says, okay, I'm going to give you this next piece. And from there, I was able to start writing the lyrics. And the lyrics were so... It took me a very long time to finish it because I kept breaking down emotionally when I would get to a certain part in the song. And it took me a long time to get all of the lyrics written for the verse that, sometimes I would just need to take a few days away from it because I just didn't feel like dealing with this emotional thing. And, my wife is convinced it's because it's a past life regression thing that's coming through with this song. And it may very well be. But it took me probably a year, and there's still not, every now and then I'll change a word on it, because I'm still not quite there. But it wasn't until I would say last August that the final guitar piece of music finally came through. And I'm like, okay, now I have the song 90%. And when I'm ready, then I'll record it. But I'm still feeling like I'm not quite ready to record it yet. But the people that have heard the song have all reacted very strongly toward it. And it's an acoustic Appalachian Americana feel to the song. It's much more of a story and different than anything else I've ever written. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that. And do you have anything to add there? I know you wanted to talk, Michael.
Yeah. I really love your videos. You say you're doing a lot of your stuff yourself. Did you? Yeah. You have really good videos, and your website is really good. Can you mention your website for us real quick?
Sure. It's raventreeband.com. I just launched a new one. What was it? 2 days ago, I think. So that's the new and upgraded website. You can catch all the videos, and the music can be played there. And again, it's one of those things where. Built it myself, and that's really the way it is as an independent entrepreneur now. You learn how to do everything. You learn how to do video, audio, web building, e-commerce, everything. And the tools are there, you just have to do it.
Just have to learn it and get out there and do it. Yeah, I'm learning that myself. But having that fan base and building the fan base is the thing that really makes a difference.
It really is. And I mean, it helps you. And I think the thing that, I had a marketing consultant work with me for about a month last year. And what he was really surprised with was that he goes, Mike, usually bands get people saying, thumbs up, that sounds good. He said, you have people coming back and responding to your videos with paragraphs of why they like your stuff. He goes, that's significant. You have something here that's exceptionally marketable. The people want this. So coming into this year, it's a matter of finding the professionals that really are as professional at what they do as I am at what I do in the public relations and the marketing aspects of just getting the awareness out there. And that's been the struggle is people, when they find us, love us or they hate us. There's no in between. And, but it's allowing them to find us, which has been the challenge. So.
Yeah, and Moe's the expert on that. What do you think, Mo?
Well, it comes down to what you said before. There's a lot of competition now, and you don't only have that on the club scene, which you're familiar with, but you have that on the internet. So you got to deal with that, and I think it's just a matter of getting out there and then crowdsourcing and tapping your fan base as you're going along. And I think you're doing that, and you fans beget fans, and they share your music with them, just like the old days, the tape, right? Everybody passes that tape around or records it. So I think the more that you can tap that crowd source, and maybe that's something that needs to be discovered, that 1,000 fan base, if you can get that, and develop those 10 people in Germany to, 50 people and just grow it small. And it's great that you're honest. I love hearing that you're not like, bullshitting like most guys. Oh, we got thousands of fans here and there and we're doing, you're honest. And that's the reality of having a band. It's fucking tough to have a band.
It's like Mike used to say in training, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? Exactly, yeah. Everybody would be a SEAL. So that being said, we are, one of the things, it's also working smarter, not harder, which is another thing I learned it too, which sometimes I don't know if I really implement it all the time. But one of the things I recognize is that, if people want us to come to Germany, but the finances don't allow for it, what I can do and what we are doing is we're filming a live DVD album next month, or in May, I should say. And that is going to be our opportunity and our desire to get our show to these people that really want to see it, and allow them to really be able to have that opportunity to experience, okay, this is the band. I can't bring the band to France, but I can give you this. And from there, it's like you look at Budokan, Live at Budokan, and Kiss Alive, and Live at Leeds, and all these, the Elements, Live at the Fillmore East. These are the shows, these are the albums that broke those bands. Not the 2 or 3 albums that they had put out prior that were studio albums, but that live thing, that authenticity. And that's the thing that if you want to reach an audience today, no matter what you are, whether you're a writer or movie person or musician or graphic illustrator, whatever it is, you have to be authentic. You have to just be nakedly yourself. Because if you're not, everybody's already seen all the bullshit on the internet. We know what that looks like. They want to connect with the true artist. And if you're not giving it to them, they smell that bullshit in half a minute.
100%. Yeah. Authentic. That's great.
Yeah, and Moe's really good with this as far as growing your business, and really good advice, and as far as everything. He basically told me, hey, you need to just get on the video and just start doing this stuff, and my stuff just started blossoming after that. So I get on the video as much as I can. So doing a DVD, it's kind of like a promotional thing. You send it over there, and then you just grow your fan base without having to do all the work. So it's fantastic. The little things that come to you, like the creative moments, I have tons of stuff, inside me. I have lots of books, have lots of teaching courses, but it's when is the right moment? So you're talking about that creativity. Yeah. When is the right time to tap it out, and bring it forward? So I have books in me I've been working on for years, and right when I think they're done, something else comes through. So it's a fun process.
Yeah, I have a great idea real quick for you, Mike. I'm sorry, because I want to, so you're talking about this video you're going to do live. I had an idea to grow the fan base before you do it, is you have people actually film themselves watching the video, and then you you include them in a video after, meaning they send in their videos of them watching the video. So here you are, right? Okay, so the idea is this live video, right? And everybody participates, but they're actually videotaping themselves, and they could send in the videos of them, and then you can make kind of a compilation video. I don't know. I thought maybe that would increase the viewership.
Yeah, we were going to try to do a live streaming event. That's what was our initial attempt was going to do. But unfortunately, finding a venue that could support the audio quality along with the video stream, that's where we ran into an insurmountable technical challenge, because we had hoped to be able to do exactly that, which was to have everybody interactive globally that are our fans being able to log on and be able to participate in that experience. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it that way. But at the same time, we've been looking at, we'll probably break a couple of the songs out as standalone videos, put them out on our YouTube channel when the time comes, and then reserve the actual show for those fans who want to log on to Patreon and donate and become a member, and then be able to have access to content that is a little more exclusive. Because that's the important thing, is that for those fans that are really into you and really want to support you, you have to honor that. You have to honor that by treating them as special as they are. And it's not just by giving it all away. It's allowing them to have an exclusive access to you and to your work. So sometimes that can help grow the demand as well.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. Definitely. So the same thing that other people are doing, whether in business or online coaching, you could do as a band, reaching people all over the world and then give them specialized content and then also earn income. So there's that exchange of value to these people.
Right. And you know, like Mike said, I think the biggest thing for connecting with people is just conversing. And that is where, again, I run into this time crunch where I'm like, I'm over at the studio doing this, or, you know, getting ready to record here, or I'm fixing my guitars that day. And I'm like, when do I have time to sit down with a camera and sit down and actually just, you know, do a video blog once a week? I'd love to be able to do that. And I have yet to be able to. And it's something that I know that, Mike, you do it. A lot of the more successful entertainers and artists and creatives, that's what they do, is they consistently engage. Ron Pope is an artist, amazing singer, songwriter. I don't know if you guys are familiar with who he is, but I was at the City Winery in DC with my wife, who went to see him perform acoustically, and he packed the room and nobody knows who he is. You know, that's the sheer brilliance and the ability of the internet to reach an audience and capture them. And he engages with them directly, bypasses all the middlemen and just engages directly. But it's a constant stream of engagement. And that's where I'm like, at some point, I need to make that a priority. And unfortunately, either I've been too thick-headed or just too small to do it.
Yeah, model after Pope, you know, what he's doing. It sounds like he's got that 1,000 principle down and he's engaging actively with them. And that's what people want. I heard recently from Jason Silva, he does the brain games and so forth. He said it's an attention economy, you know, so everybody, they only have certain amount of attention span and you have to grab their attention. And I like what you said, super fans, right? You've got to make people super fans now, or else there's 10 of you out there, you know? So.
Right. So, you know, it's a process that I also believe that when the time is right, then the opportunities are there. And I don't mean to say I leave everything to chance, but at the same time, I recognize that if I really feel a pull to be doing something other than filming content, then it's probably important that I get that done too. But I feel like that point is coming. Like Mike, you called it a tipping point. To me, it's a transitional point where it's like, okay, we've gotten a lot of this taken care of. Now it's time to get this done. You know, and not only is it the time that I have to get it done, but it's probably the right time to strike that iron in particular. We were talking about things that drop out of the universe randomly. You might remember this guy. I don't know, Mike. Do you remember a guy named Greg LeBenz?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
He was the guy with the haircut in the Discovery film that he and I were roommates then, and we went to 2. He went to 2 as well. Out of the blue, I got a contact from this guy who's been a tour manager and rigger and, you know, guitar tech to the stars for 20 years, saying, I want to work with your band. I'd like to go on tour with you guys. I really want to do. I believe I want you to blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. He goes, because somebody had referenced you guys to me. I want to check you guys out and this, that, and the other thing. I was like, well, okay, that's odd. So offline, we got together and I said, well, who is it that tipped you to us? He goes, another frogman named Greg LeBenz. And I was just like, okay. But, you know, again, it's these relationships over our lives that seem to, sometimes you don't know what you have a friend and you know there's something special about that friendship, but you don't know why. And then years later, something occurs and you're like, that's why we were friends this whole time. But yeah, so this guy came out and he is in the process of helping us book and connect with the industry at the level that we should be. He had told us he had sent some of our stuff out to some industry folks, and they were all like, why are they languishing by themselves in merit? Why are they not on tour? Why are they not doing that? Why are they not performing here? Why are they not over here? And his answer was, I don't know. And then he asked me, and I'm like, I don't know either, because I'm trying really hard. You know, it's like, sometimes you have to have that team. You have to have that Christian Garcia to swim over and inflate your pants for you, because you just can't get it done yourself.
You don't boast about this career at all as far as being a SEAL or use that in your marketing. You're real humble about that.
No. You know why? had far too many of those guys, and it's like, I depending on who you talk to in the teams, your reputation can be all over the map. And I don't care if somebody wants to say I fucked something up one time. I don't care, because maybe I did, but I am not going to be the guy that gets pointed to that says he used his team guy thing to get somewhere, because that's bullshit. You know what makes a team guy great is not that they were a team guy, but it's the person they are that allowed them to become a team guy. And it's that will allow you to become successful somewhere else, not because you were a team guy. And anybody that uses that, that's bullshit, man. And it pisses me off. And I'll tell you, we had a gal who wanted to manage us for a little while, and that's all she wanted to talk about, and have that be the thing. And I'm like, you know what? You're not getting it. You're not getting me. And so no thanks. After about 3 months, I kicked her off to the curb. And it's like, every time I go on to do an interview, especially on air, people, you can see they're all excited to talk about some of this. And I'm like, we'll talk about military experiences, but it's going to be non-specific, because I am not going to utilize this. And it's not because it's not just because of what other people use to sell themselves. I mean, for example, Mike, in your line of work, your career is that, it's what you teach, it's what you train, and it's a part of what you do. It's for the guys that are selling a movie. It's like being a rock and roll star has nothing to do with being a team guy. That's right? And it's relevant. It's when you're out there trying to sell yourself as a politician, or as, pick anything else. Well, I was a former team guy. You remember Marty Shavitz, Mike? You may not remember him from the student days. I don't know if he was a student when you were there, but Marty was at 2. He was a corpsman. He is a city administrator in Las Vegas for the sanitation department. Former team guy, and a hell of a team guy too, right? I go up every year to my brother's Marine Corps League in New York City at Christmas time, and they do their annual thing. And I meet guys that are bus mechanics who are in the thick of it in Fallujah. I've met guys who were deep into NSA level weird, wacky shit in Vietnam, in the middle of nowhere in Laos, who were doing things that you'll never understand or believe. And, they were school teachers when they came home. And my feeling is, being a team guy is something that is a part of me and I value. And I don't want to tarnish it by being somebody who just tries to utilize it for something that's so crass, and it's like, I'd rather have people find out about it and ask me about it after they've been impressed with my music, as opposed to trying to impress them with my music by saying I was a team guy. Well, that's really good for a team guy.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I'm sure
Yeah. But again, it's, 6 of that. I'd much rather have more people buy my album right now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I suggest you do a lot of podcasts. That's a great way to reach people too. Just keep going on that podcast route, do as many interviews as you can, reach out to those kind of people. I feel that's kind of like reaching out to the record label, the college radio stations, and get to those, different music venues and so forth. So
thanks, Mo. I'll take that on board. I know that there are a lot of people out there. I've done podcasts in the past, and it's weird. I mean, sometimes you hit these folks that are, you look at them and they've got a listenership of like 1 million people per month to their podcast. And then I've been to places where you get to their house and it's down in the basement next to the laundry machine, and you're just like, this is the guy, and you have a podcast, and believe it or not, you'll get a bump. You do get a bump, and it's like crazy, man. It's like, yeah, but I'm sitting in here in the laundry room and somebody, it's really kind of funny.
Yeah. They're hard to monetize. Thanks, man.
I like that, dude. So is that in your house, your studio?
Yeah. This is kind of my office / studio. Are you talking to Michael Jaco?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaco. Yeah, he's got a green screen. What do you got behind you, Jaco?
Yeah, it's just a green, sheet. I just
then he has a.
I could put whatever picture I want back there. So.
Oh, okay.
It's not real. I'm not like in some kind of window somewhere, like looking out over that. That'd be cool. I have lived in places like that, but not right now.
No, but where you live looks amazing, dude. I mean, it's just like we don't get that much snow here in Maryland anymore, and I was just like, man, he's living it large out there. That's
No,
awesome.
it's this has been an epic year. It's the most that's I think probably ever. Well, not probably ever. Probably go back 1,000 years and probably more. But yeah, for recorded history, I think this is going to be it.
Do you ever get sick of the snow? Just go like, come on, or no? Do you ever like?
No,
say, hey, no?
I pull it in. I got that ability. So a couple of years ago, I pulled in some heavy snow, and I took a break last year, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it again this year. So this is not really me, but I just kind of focus on it. And I have that ability to do this kind of stuff. So I just pulled in heavy snow this year. Because what happens is the river and the streams and the lakes that are around Lake Tahoe and the waterfalls are just epic. And, I run my courses here, so I want to have everything perfect for everybody. But I have to be careful how I do it because sometimes I get out of control. One time I had a course where I was like, I want it to be like, I want it to snow. And it snowed heavy in June on my class. I was like, okay, I need to back off a little bit on this, so just one of those things.
Talk about manifestation. What's funny is Barb has a friend and she manifests all the time. And what's weird is that she's not necessarily the most quality person, which I don't quite understand from a karmic perspective, is that here's somebody who's really kind of an angry person, but she can manifest all the time. And I'm like, my understanding has always been you really have to let go of the anger and let go and really cleanse to be able to manifest. But here's this person who is just all ate up in her personal and emotional makeup. But man, when she wants something, it happens.
Just knows how to tune that in, You just you find those little channels that are good for you, and you just kind of like tune it in and boof.
Yeah, she probably can go in and out of those chaotic states back into her zone, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's natural for her. She's really amazing. And, Barb and I find that for us, when we need to manifest, second marriage is for both of us, so you always have those large pieces of luggage with you. But when we are in alignment together, our collective manifestation is like, boom, new jobs, more money, vacation, beautiful home. I overlooked the Inner Harbor, dude. I don't live like a starving artist by any means. Between the two of us, with my retirement and everything else, we've been able to really make a really nice. We live in a 140-year-old historic home in Baltimore overlooking the harbor.
Oh my God. Good job.
Yeah, dude, life doesn't suck for us either. But it's like in these moments when we're aligned with each other, we manifest together and it's boom. It's really an amazing thing. And my wife is really great at it too. But
I see we missed this should have been in the interview. This
I was like, well, are we going to get to that part? Are we going to talk about, and I was just like, I'll just roll with whatever. But what was really funny is when we talk about manifestation. So, you talked about selling your soul to the devil, and you have to be very specific, right? Because manifestation of anything, you have to be very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Barb asked me a couple of years ago, what do you want out of your music? And I said, I want to be widely regarded. I want to be recognized as an artist, as writing good songs and being a great guitar player. Well, that's exactly what I have. I have fans all over the world. We have 2,500 fans on our Facebook page. We have a lot of interaction, super fans, right? All of them. Zero money, because I failed to say a little money would also be nice with this, right? So now I'm kind of trying to catch up and say, okay, now that we're there, let's start focusing on some cash flow. And I don't want
it's going to come now. Yeah.
I just, at this point, all I want, Mike, is I want the band to be self-sustaining financially. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be paying out of my pocket $1,200 a month just to sustain the band's operations. I want it to pay for itself. If I can get there,
priming that pump, man, it's gonna happen. You just keep how it is. You just keep the focus. You don't let the negative come in, and it's gonna manifest. It's this way it works. Right.
So, but yeah, Mike, I'm more interested in how you came about to this stuff, because when I started, when Dan Franks first popped up on Facebook with me and reached out to me, he had just completed the course, your 2-day course, I think, and it talked about it. So I logged on and I looked at your stuff, and you and I connected on Facebook as well. And I started really kind of, just creeping you and watching what you're doing. I'm like, this guy is talking about stuff that is sitting on my bookshelf that I would never talk about in public because people don't get it. They think we're nuts. And my wife and I just keep it to ourselves. And I'm like, but look at Chief. He's out there just throwing it out there to everybody, and he doesn't give a shit. And I'm like, this is amazing. But then my next thought was, how did that guy get to this? And I thought, well, he was always kind of that way. He was, even in Buds, he was this guy who talked about a bigger awakening, a bigger inner thing. It was never about being a team guy as the commando thing, or even about everybody wants you and chicks adore you and men want to be you. It was never that for you. It was always like this inner spiritual journey type of approach to how you instructed. And that's when I thought, I wonder if that motherfucker was into this shit back then. But I'm really curious.
Actually, even at SEAL Team 6, it really awakened a lot because we talk about how you go into these zones where you just like let everything go. So the combat experience was at SEAL Team 6 in Panama was kind of like one of those things. And then when I came back from that, I started getting into Edgar Casey stuff. But going further is like guys like Moe, and especially Moe. Had me on. He had me on his podcast, several times, and it just brought me out. So I was kind of like, the typical team guy. I'm like, I can't go out in public, especially after the CIA thing too.
Right.
So I'm releasing this stuff while I'm in the CIA. So it's doubly tough.
Yeah, I remember those interviews, and it was hard to get you to talk, and then slowly you would talk a little bit more. And then I remember, Michael, I think you had just retired from the CIA, and then you went on like a sabbatical in the freaking mountains. You like walked for like 4 months in the wilderness or something with no food, freaking something crazy. Right. And then he came back, and he was just like, I'm doing this full time, and I was just, everybody's like, wow. And then this is all he's been doing, Mike, now since that time. And you did the sabbatical when? 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's 4 years ago. So Facebook kind of reminds you, of your past stuff. So I was looking at it, this just recently. It's like 4 months ago. Or 4 years ago. So 4 years ago to right now is like, out there for, like you said, 4 months. And I was like, I went out. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with all this, and I kind of one of those release things. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not coming back. Right. I'm just going to go to Canada. I'm just going to disappear in the wilderness and just, stupid. But, when I look back on it, but that was my intent. And then over time, I was like, once everything started to like fall off of me, from 35 years, I just started going, okay, because I listened to these, like, this is your mission, if you choose. They meant Mission Impossible. So your mission will be to go back and spread this. I'm like, okay, I can get excited about that. But it's a process, like we're talking about. You have to learn. You're basically your own promoter. You have to learn how to run a business. It's a lot of information, but I love a good challenge. So just keep pressing ahead.
Yeah, I think what's enjoyable about doing that, the entrepreneurial thing, is that you are truly responsible for your own shit. You're not relying necessarily on other people to do things that you should be doing for yourself in any event. There are no shortcuts. You're constantly exercising that muscle. And when you truly do reach that point of requiring a teammate, then they appear. Like you and Moe seem to work exceptionally well together. And that's something that I would say, yeah, see, because you're doing things for yourself, but you also have a team around you. Like a band is very similar to a SEAL platoon or squad, where you want to talk about herding cats and people that are not going to be led by anybody. I mean, it's just it's about everything. Nothing is good enough, and you suck, and everything sucks. And why isn't it's? But I find I've replaced the teams with a band. And a lot of the challenges, leadership as well as organizationally, are very similar. I just feel like, in my own journey and spiritually, it's been interesting to watch the people that I connect with or reconnect with from from the history of my life, who have found their way to the same place. Because some of those people are not who I would have expected. And some of those people I would have expected are not here. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I thought it was neat. Dan is one of those folks. And then obviously with you, it did start to make sense after I started thinking about it a while. But Mo, what about you? I know Mike, but what's your deal, man?
What's my deal, huh?
Yeah.
What is my deal, huh? I met Michael, about 7 years ago, and was just starting to study Gnosticism and the occult and so forth. And I went to some little conference in Sedona at the time, and I was just kind of searching for the spiritual side of life. I grew up with alcoholic parents, rough side of the tracks. Nothing like you guys. I've been to jail, prison. I used to grow pot for a living and sell it. Been in punk rock bands and managed a record label and so forth, lost everything. And then what ended up happening is I went to prison for a couple of years in Norco, and ended up coming out and just wanted to try to find myself, and kind of started just the path on the internet. And I somehow ended up in Sedona, met Mike. He was into martial arts and different things at the time, and he inspired me to kind of get involved into martial arts. So I ended up getting my black belt in Hapkido, ended up starting a business and so forth. But that's pretty much it. I own my own business. I own a mold business, a water damage and mold removal business here in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it. I'm an author. I have a book. I wrote it about 6 years ago. It's the Modern Teachings of Ancient Gnosticism. The Order of the Gnostics is kind of the book that I had written. So I'm big into Gnosticism and spirituality. Had a podcast that I operated before, the Gnostic Warrior podcast, over 100 different interviews, all kinds of different high-profile people that I've interviewed on there, including Jaco, and then the Prime Minister of Canada, and all different types of people. So that's
the Gnostic thing is really an interesting thing, isn't it? And when you read those missing chapters, if you will, what emerges is a concept of Christian spirituality that everybody has missed the boat on. Mm-hmm. It truly is not about necessarily a physical Jesus as much as, it really is how we interrelate with each other, and the concepts, the abstract concepts of spirituality and our interactions with each other on that level. And I feel like, when you see this popular thing of just bad mouthing religion in general, I'm thinking, man, you're missing the boat now for sure. Because maybe going into mass every Sunday is not quite getting there, but that's the gateway. If you can't at least start there, you're not going to get to the Gnosticism. You're not going to get to, the Dead Sea Scrolls. You're not going to get to any of this, which when you start to fill in the blanks with that, suddenly it becomes very clear what they were talking about and how it continues to relate to our lives.
Sure. You said, just like you got to think from in here, not here, and that's what religion teaches. All the different religions, the Abrahamic is all is love, and they all spawn from Gnosticism. If you look at Christianity and so forth, and it's just more of a dogmatic, orthodox type of religious structure that they decided to put in. And then, the Gnosticism, I feel that's where the meat is, and the real spiritual teachings. And that's kind of what I found when I would look into it. And it's nice that we can now talk about it today. And, I found a lot of liberation looking into those teachings and so forth. And they tie into a lot of modern science. If you look at everything today, diagnostic, pro-Gnostic, all these things in medical terms, they all come from Gnostics, so.
I bought a book years ago about the science behind metaphysics. And I got about halfway through it, and I thought, I just don't really want to know about the science per se of metaphysics, because it doesn't really matter to me how it works. I just need to know that it does. Mm-hmm. And that's a user ignorance thing. Like, I just need to be able to push the button and know that it's going to operate when I push the button. But I kind of feel like I like the idea of just knowing that it really doesn't matter what's happening on the back end. It's what's happening within me that's making these things manifest.
That's great. I wish I could do that more. I'm always thinking analytically. I always got to get behind it and the mechanics. I don't know why I do that, but it's a blessing and a curse. So I get what you're saying, and I wish I could do that more. But I always have to go, why? I'm always asking why, and I've got to explain it. And I don't know who the fuck I'm explaining it to sometimes, because I need to live more in the moment in my heart, but sometimes I'm too much in my left brain, that analytical side of us, so.
Yeah. You kind of briefly mentioned past life. I mean, we could have gone down all kind of different pathways, I'm sure, but the past life stuff, Mo and I have had past lives together. So it's kind of like, you come back together and you work together again. So it's probably, all three of us, maybe we're, warriors together, or who knows what, Mo's been a scholar and that type for many, many years. So it kind of, fits into what he's doing now.
Yeah. And the priest kind of function, that's kind of how I've always felt, and then, with you warrior types, I've always gotten along with and been drawn to for some reason. And we always could talk, even though I haven't been on that side of it, so it's cool. And you guys have that aspect to you as well. And then with me training getting my black belt and that warrior side, it just, we all have different aspects to us. And I think you'd mentioned that, Mike, and I think we're multifaceted, and a lot of what we're doing today in this life, if we're truly living by our heart, is carrying that baton from past lives. So that's what I feel like what you guys are doing. So.
Yeah, I think there's an aspect of frustration culturally that not enough people are exercising the inner warrior part. They're not getting out there and putting themselves through some sort of exercise or training regimen that allows them to learn a kata or whatever it is that they need to do to feel like they're providing, that are exercising those inherent instinctual needs of in particular the male of the species, to get out there and kill something, and I don't mean that lightly. I don't mean that, in a half-ass comment. What I'm saying is that instinctual need to go out and strive and fight for your life. Those things need to be exercised both spiritually. And I think when that doesn't happen, it spurts out. It'll find a way out. And when it does, it's not constructive. You get these wackos, shooting up a nightclub, or you get all these oddball things that are starting to happen within our society because we've clamped down on our ability to exercise that instinctual need for us to do it, whether we like it or not. So whether we can do it constructively or destructively, you take it away to do it constructively, it's going to come out destructively, no matter what you do. So I think being that you find that ability to connect with people like Mike or myself or anybody, I don't know. I think we all have it. It's just some people allow themselves to connect with it and some people don't.
Yeah, I think that inner warrior thing you're talking about, that's the thing that we should be striving for, not the outer, warrior type stuff. And it's funny to me because, my level of knowledge of, how to go deep and deeper and just so deep, it's hard for me to fathom some of this stuff I've gone into. But people will say, "You've never killed anybody?" I'm like, yeah, I think that's a pretty good thing. It means my abilities are far superior than the guy that has to go out and kill somebody. So that development of the inner warrior is what I promote, and what is really something that everyone should be striving for. We're all warriors in a certain aspect, and once you realize that and you really start to focus on that, then you really start to overcome the things that are holding you back.
Right. Because now you're more balanced spiritually. You're more balanced from that inner and that instinctual aspect of you. That 20,000, 80,000 year old part of you is now balanced, and so you can kind of start to move forward. The past life thing is something that I've been contemplating lately. What I've noticed is that as I get older, things that used to be really strong for me will then shift to something else, and I'm talking about proclivities or things of interest or things that I gravitate towards. And I started to contemplate, well, not every life lives to fruition. Not every life goes until you're 80. So is it that, well, when I reached a point in this life where another one ended, that falls away, and now I'm finding that another life that extended beyond, like after the age of 30, I started focusing in another area, or some other things became of interest. I'm connecting with things differently. Is that because at a certain point, the other thing fell away, and now this is what's, what I'm saying? Like it's
I feel I'm living like several lifetimes in one life. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Having ADHD, which was diagnosed about right before I retired, explained a lot too, as far as the randomness of my life. But in finally treating it and medicating it, my life became more focused and more constructive, but the energy is still there. And I don't feel, looking back on it, I'm like, I don't think it was an ADHD life. I think it was just, trying to just do the things that made me feel good. And what we were talking about before, Mike, you were talking about in your career, you reached that point where they finally caught up with you and now you're chained to a desk, but you got to go out and operate for 24 years. And then you left and did it some more. I think that's true of any life, if that's what you want it to be. I've got fraternity brother who the day he graduated, he wound up at the fort, at Meade, and he's been there miserable ever fucking since. And I'm like, that's on you, brother. Everything I do is fun. It's why I think my hair is still black, because I manifest for myself a certain sense of being that I still am who I am. I'm fatter, I'm older, but you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're living by truth, Mike. You're living by your truth, as opposed to something imposed upon you, and that's caused you to kind of go do that. But you're living your own path. And I think that's what's important. And we all need to do that and pick that path and focus on it before we leave into another world or wherever we go.
Yeah. Well, guys, it is almost 4:00 here, my time. I've got to get rolling because I got to help my wife make dinner before she gets home. Or
nice.
We're home all day, and I come home and I have to make dinner. I'm like, well, So at least
talking.
Mike, I'll definitely reach out to you again. I will tell you this. I looked at your courses. It may not be this year, but I was thinking about bringing my oldest out. I didn't know if you had an age restriction on anything.
No.
Okay.
No. Well, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, there's obviously information that most like very young people wouldn't be able to handle, but I have a guy who's bringing out his son. I think he's 15 or 16 years old. He's going to go through a couple of the courses, and we're going out on the lake. He's going to do that intensive course with me. So his son eventually wants to go into become a Marine. So it's going to be perfect for him. Perfect. And I've worked with a lot of young men like that over the years.
The reason why I ask is my wife is an empath and an exceptionally strong one. It's almost debilitating for her. Why she's also very much an introvert, because I've watched her just go to pieces in large crowds if her walls are not up. My youngest in particular is very adept at hearing you over large geographic expanse, like multiple states away.
That's cool.
When she was younger, like I've got a blown knee that was operated on. Whenever it would hurt, she would crawl over and lift herself up and put her hands on my knee, and the pain would go away.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. And so she's going into nursing. She starts at Auburn next year. She's been raised with knowledge of the craft and knowledge of the esoteric, even though not as a practitioner, because at a certain age, you just don't want them screwing around with stuff. I don't do it, because of those reasons we already talked about. But I was really looking at your courses, and I'm thinking that if not this year, then next year, I'm going to probably bring her out, because there are two things. I can show her how to pop an eyeball, but it's not something that, without the context of what you're doing, I don't feel comfortable training her to do things. She needs to be in the warrior mindset. She has to have all these things. And sometimes you can't teach your own kids. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I thought it would be something that I'd like to bring her out, because I think on a lot of different levels, not just the tactical level, but the spiritual level, what you're teaching is exactly what I think would help set her up for success as she goes into her life. And I would feel more comfortable knowing she's out there with that knowledge and with that awareness. And I don't know if my youngest is of a personality that would really want to do it, but I know my oldest is somebody that I will probably bring out. And I personally want to come out and do it as well. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah. Look forward to it. It's going to be great.
And I'd really like to stay in correspondence with you guys or whatever. And anytime you guys want to just get together and shoot the shit about stuff like this, I don't have anybody else to talk to, you know. Nobody talks about this stuff on the level that we're talking about it that I'm aware of. So
that would be great. I would love that. Michael, please send that to me, bro.
Absolutely.
Will do.
Nice talking to you, Mike. Nice meeting you, man.
All right, Mo. Thanks. Take care.
You're welcome. Take
All
care.
right, guys.
You too.
Have a
Bye.
great day.
See you, Michael.
Yep.